जी
एफडी अगर 20 के लिए किया होगा विड्रॉल,
हाँ
मैच्योर होगा तभी आएगा।
हाँ, जब मैच्योर आएगा, that is the, if you go by the scheme of the act, that is the correct way of treating it. But sometimes people take exemptions. For instance, the only exemptions I see is TDS. TDS normally also should be treated when it is received. There are cases also. There is a Calcutta High Court case which says that TDS when received should be treated as a income. But nowadays there will be a mismatch between your 26 AS. So you may take, the law also allows that how to use this exception. TDS को आप income बना लीजिए. Under the law, I am jumping. 15% of income you can accumulate. Certain income which you are not. There are three types of accumulation. One, total income का 15% आप खर्च मत कीजिए. It becomes your corpus indefinitely every year. Secondly, 85% which you have to use, you can accumulate in three manners. One, under explanation to section 11(1), if the money is due but not received or received but not accessible. For instance, आपका बैंक अकाउंट अटैच हो गया, FCRA का इंक्वायरी चल रहा है, ग्रीन पीस उसका बैंक अकाउंट अभी अटैच्ड है. So then you are not able to apply that money, then you exercise that option under section 11. So under this option you can apply TDS also. So then the income will be applied in the year when it is received or it comes to your access. So section 11(1), explanation to section 11(1) have two options. Second option is that you will use it in next 12 months, deemed utilization. Then you have section 11(2), you will file form 10, next 5 year में आप खर्च कर सकते हैं. So except TDS, probably TDS you can take that exception if required. If the amount is very high, you can apply section 11(1) and you can accumulate it, and whenever it comes there you can use it as deemed application of the old year. Corpus donation generally is income or not? Income? Not income? Everybody agrees? Corpus income था नहीं. For that matter, voluntary contribution भी income नहीं था. धीरे धीरे creeping technology में सब आ गया. So now section 224 में जो भी bit है, it says that voluntary contribution including corpus donation is income. So under section 2 of the Income Tax Act, income includes corpus donation. Then it is treated as expenditure under section 11(1)(d. तो एक तरफ income, एक तरफ खर्चा, both journal entry. As far as your income and expenditure is concerned, you did not apply, just take a deemed application under section 11(1)(d. उससे फायदा क्या होता है? फायदा यह होता है कि आपका टोटल इनकम इंक्रीज हो जाता है सेक्शन 11(1) में. तो टू माई अंडरस्टैंडिंग सेक्शन 11(1) के बाद 11(1) में पहले आता है, CD बाद में आता है. तो 85% का जो 15% कंप्यूट करने के लिए you can use the income including corpus donation. Total income, corpus donation applied during the year, corpus donation, then unapplied part to the extent of 15% of the total income can be accumulated. तो इफेक्टिवली कॉर्पस में 115% बेनिफिट मिल जाएगा, because the corpus donation plus 15% of the corpus amount, because it is included in the income. This could be a loophole of the act, but I revisited again and again. I felt that there is nothing in the act which says that you should reduce corpus income for computation of 15%. So corpus will be included in income, again deducted. Corpus benefit can be availed for those 15% purposes. Corpus is a specific fund or a general fund? हाँ? स्पेसिफिक फंड है? एनपीओ में सब उल्टा होता है। तो कॉर्पस इज ए जनरल फंड, देयर इज नथिंग स्पेसिफिक अबाउट कॉर्पस। कॉर्पस में स्पेसिफिक इतना ही है कि इट कम्स विद अ स्पेसिफिक डायरेक्शन। मैं आपको बोलता हूं कि that you do this, so I am not going into the nature of your work. So corpus is a general voluntary contribution with an additional advantage given by the donor that it can be retained permanently. तो डोनर सिर्फ इतना लिखता है कि आप चाहो तो इसको कॉर्पस में रख सकते हो। So there is no specific direction regarding the use of the fund. It is an unconditional fund. The moment the fund becomes restricted or specific, it becomes an endowment. If a fund is long-term fund and if it is said that it will be used for this particular purpose, it is no longer a corpus. Corpus is like the equity share capital, which, so then it becomes a preference capital or that kind of a. So a corpus fund is a general fund which is allowed to be retained by the organization. So therefore, if you don't have 12A registration, corpus funds should also be included in income. But there are some cases where high courts have held that corpus fund even without 12A registration cannot be taxed. But that is interpretation of the statute. A literal reading of the statute says that corpus is part of income. कॉर्पस का खर्च में कोई पाबंदी नहीं है. You can spend the corpus if you want. People think that whether we can spend the corpus or not, you should have a written direction from the donor, and the donor should be identifiable. Today, just like the banks know your customer, know your donor norms also apply to the NPOs, and particularly in case of foreign funding, Money Laundering Act will also apply if they are not able to establish the trail of the money. If considerable amounts is received and they say that it is anonymous, it is subjected to money laundering laws also. So, कॉर्पस वाली बात हो गई. Restricted grant. Yes, sir. Sir.
Advance receipt during the year or the following year, can it be treated as an income?
My understanding is that when an advance receipt is received as a part of legal obligation, एक bilateral contract के तहत अगर आपको मिलता है, then it will not be treated as income. We will see this restricted grant, etc. But when advance receipt is a part of your voluntary contribution, normal income, etc., then an NPO should treat it as an income for the year in which it has received.
What I am talking about is school.
Ha.
School children normally pays at the end of the month, I mean March 31st, for the following year, advance tuition fees, etc. Can that be treated as an income?
No. For school, when we are discussing section 11, we have to understand, particularly in case of school, there is a lot of confusion in computation of income. Section 11 income, the spirit of the act is that the income which otherwise would be taxed should be applied for charitable purposes and it is exempted. Otherwise, that is the purpose of section 11. If the income is not taxable, the income is not taxable, then why you need exemption? The spirit of this section 11 is that you take away all the charges. All charge against the income should be removed first. For instance, you do fundraising. Fundraising expenditure should be first removed. So 1 crore rupees received, 10 lakh rupees for fundraising expenditure, 90 lakh rupees is income. So income which is free from charge, technically that is the income which should be taken at the beginning of section 11.1. And then whatever you apply, therefore the word expenditure has not been used in section 11.1a. So that is the correct way of treating. But what we normally do, suppose a student is paying fee, as I said, the fee is a part of contractual obligation. It cannot become my income till that obligation is executed. So technically, those charges should be taken above the line, whatever net is available. But educational institutions, what they do, that paying to a teacher can be a charge against your income, can also be application of your income towards charitable purposes. If I am running a school where I am teaching students free of cost, then the teacher's salary is application of income. When I am running a school and I am taking 3 times the fees and I am making lot of profit, then the teacher's salary is a charge against that income. So because of this, no distinction has been made between these two types of application. Therefore, educational institutions take advantage by treating the entire gross receipt as income and the entire expenditure including the charge against income as application. Because teacher ka salary वैसे भी application हो सकता है. So this is one grey area of the Income Tax Act.
So what I'm trying to say, for new admissions,
हाँ.
in class 1, students are coming, they are paying for the following year,
हाँ.
what they are paying in the previous year.
That is what I am saying. Because what you are saying is a part of contractual obligation. In that case, you would be entitled to match it with the year and the services. That should be the correct way. Because what we say, under section 11, you take all the income commercially which is unconditionally available for charitable purposes. That money is not unconditionally available. That is subject to 1 year's teaching in the next year. So all money unconditionally available for charitable purposes should be treated on cash basis at the beginning of section 11.1. That is the spirit of section 11.1. Now coming to project grant. ये project grant income है या नहीं? Income है?
It again comes with a charge, so it's not an income.
It should not be an income. So technically also, whenever you enter into a contract, at the execution of the contract you know whether there is income or not, because there might be loss also. So when an NPO takes a contract, only because it is a trusteeship contract, you cannot say that there is no legal obligation. Legal obligation, what is a legal obligation? Legal obligation is a legal liability coming out of a contract. That liability need not necessarily be financial. The difference between a liability and a legal obligation. There is some confusion because maybe we are still working on accounting standards. The framework to accounting standards, accounting standard 1 we define liability and project grants are to be treated under the head liability. But a legal obligation is not necessarily liability. A liability can be financially extinguished. A legal obligation has to be executed. आपने कॉन्ट्रैक्ट साइन किया तो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के हिसाब से आपको 3 साल काम करना पड़ेगा. So it will involve financial, non-financial, a lot of issues, where finance is only one of the component. So project contracts are legal obligations. Unfortunately, we don't have a terminology. Accounting, we treat them under liability. Still it is by and large okay. So legal obligation is a liability till executed. So all project grant are not a part of your income. तो आपको इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर में लेने की जरूरत नहीं है उसको इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर से बाहर रखिए. एंड देयर आर umpteen number of cases right from Supreme Court to various high courts to very recent cases which have not been challenged. So it is legally settled that project grants are not income. So the day the project grant is executed, उस दिन आपको पता चलेगा इनकम या लॉस हुआ, तो उसको आप लेकर जाएंगे इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर अकाउंट में. अकाउंटिंग ट्रीटमेंट में दो इट विल बी डिस्कस, जस्ट ग्रांट रिलेटेड बात मैं बता देता हूं. अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड 12 गवर्नमेंट ग्रांट which applies in general to all other grants also. There is a confusion that project grant should be treated to the extent utilized. इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर में हमें 3 साल की ग्रांट मिली है, हमने इस साल 80 लाख रुपया खर्च किया, तो 80 लाख को इनकम दिखा दिया, 80 लाख को खर्च दिखा दिया है. You may do it for disclosure purposes, but as far as the Income Tax Act is concerned, another thing I should tell you that when you are preparing audited statement under Form 10B, it is a special purpose statement. It should be precisely as per the provisions of section 11 to 13. स्पेशल पर्पस रिपोर्ट है. आपको स्टैट्यूटरी पर्पस के लिए क्यों बनाते हैं आप रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर डालते हैं, कैपिटल डालते नहीं है. मोस्ट ऑफ आवर इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर थ्रू आउट द कंट्री दे पुट रेवेन्यू एक्सपेंडिचर, दे डोंट पुट कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर. Then they will deduct the capital expenditure under computation of statement, and that is the reason of most of the additions under income tax assessment. ये वो बोलते हैं कि आपका इनकम एंड एक्सपेंडिचर अकाउंट में तो सरप्लस है, you say no, no capital expenditure is there. So please prepare income and expenditure account strictly as per the provisions of section 11 to 13, because it is a special purpose audited statement, which is a part of Form 10B. It is not an audit report you are issuing under your normal institute's guideline accounting standards. You are issuing an audit report under a specific provision of the Income Tax Act. So project grant को इनकम मत रखिए, कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर को खर्च दिखाइए, automatically half of your problem will be solved. Under to the extent utilized is a disclosure issue. Technically under for the purposes of Income Tax Act, to the extent utilized, recognition of income cannot be determined through a future event. कितना खर्च किया तो इतना ही इनकम होगा. It has to be recognized at the time of receipt, or it has to be accrue under some principle. There is a big problem. Accounting standard 12 का एक छोटा सा डिफरेंस मैं समझा देता हूँ. Accounting standard 12 applies to everybody including NGOs. If a company receives a subsidy or a grant, the company itself is beneficiary, then it should be income. Capital no revenue. But if an NPO receives grant, the NPO is a trustee, it cannot be an income. So that is a fundamental difference in application of accounting standard 12. For NPOs, you may treat it as grant and you may apply institute's guideline, because that grant comes under the definition of income for commercial organizations, and for NPO the grant is a legal obligation, so it is not covered under the definition of income. So accounting standard 12 may be some grants will be treated in the income and expenditure account, project grants will not be treated. Project grant for disclosure purposes, what we say that suddenly your income and expenditure account will become empty, because project driven organizations, so you may have a receipt payment account, an income and expenditure account, and resource mobilization and application account, where your income as well as project grant both can be consolidated at one place. So it shows a true and fair picture that income generated by the organization and fund generated under trusteeship, how both were spent during the year, your resource and application. Because in NPOs, there is no concept of ownership. Commercial organization, we say asset minus liability is net worth. When asset minus liability belongs to the organization. In NPO, it doesn't belong to the organization because it may belong to multiple donors because you are trustees too. So there is no concept of ownership. So in one balance sheet, you are addressing 10-20 balance sheets because you are trustee to 20-30 projects.
But how will you disclose the assets that are created?
When you create an asset, the moment you take to the income and expenditure account, the asset becomes zero value. So then, either you show it as token value, or you create an asset fund with appropriate accounting and auditing notes, and you show the asset. Now the Income Tax Act is not allowing you double depreciation. Asset fund was useful when double depreciation was permissible. So then you can depreciate the asset twice. But after Finance Act 2014, depreciation will not be available. So therefore, creation of asset fund does not create any tax advantage. So many organizations are now preferring to disclose the asset at token value. There is nothing in the law which stops you in disclosing it at by creating an asset fund at a very fair value.
So in many cases, the donors, in their covering note, they write that 10% of the total grant is your overhead reimbursement. Should that portion be taken into income or something?
I am quickly touching it, but we will confine to whenever an overhead is given by a donor. This is a cross-cutting issue. Suresh will explain when you come to FCRA. When a donor is giving you a specified amount as a charge, then under a bilateral project, under the principles of fund accounting, you generate some income in one particular project, some expenditure in one project. If you consolidate, nothing is there. So as far as income tax laws are concerned, as far as FCRA laws are concerned, statutory accounting is concerned, such overhead is not an income or expenditure. Such overhead only helps you to take some portion of the unearmarked, the restricted fund. So the donor has given you 1 crore, 10 lakh rupees you can unearmark. So out of 1 crore, only 90 lakh rupees will be spent as per the donor wishes. 10 can be used as per your wishes. So you just unearmark the donor fund. You may take to a general fund. You may take to an overhead administration account. So that is an unearmarked fund. Whatever you spend from them, they will be your real expenditure. No real expenditure occur in the books of account when a charge is given. It is just you take away from the donor by lifting the restriction. Maybe Surajji, maybe you can take it further because it is not exactly a taxation issue, so I am confining to the taxation related issues. At the time of closure of a project, whatever is left is treated as income or deficit. A charitable organization can have deficit or not? डेफिसिट अगले साल खर्च होगा या नहीं? 1 crore income, 2 crore expenditure. Next year 1 crore income, no expenditure. The deficit will be offset against current year's income. You did not. So another fundamental issue regarding चैरिटेबल पर्पस. चैरिटेबल पर्पस का मतलब क्या हुआ? लोगों का भला हो, है? Not necessarily. There are NGOs, a stock exchange NGO है, उसमें किस गरीब का भला होता है? There is, again I quote the famous case won by Nani Palkiwala, where a swimming pool to be used exclusively for by European women is a charitable purpose in India. उनको 12 का रजिस्ट्रेशन मिलता है, उसमें इंडियन वुमन नहीं जा सकती. So that is the kind of broad-hearted definition of charity we have. Charity need not necessarily be philanthropic. Charity need not necessarily be welfare oriented. Therefore, relief to poor is a separate column. तो बाकी relief to poor में सब आता है welfare. बाकी can be run on commercial principles. Therefore, education can be run on commercial principles. So education, if you are giving education without charging a single rupee, it can be relief to poor. You charge money, it is education. You should not be profiteering. सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है कि 6 से 15% तक अगर आप प्रॉफिट लेते हैं तो योर चैरिटेबल कैरेक्टर विल नॉट बी impaired. I am coming to incidental business. Incidental business of a charitable organization एक्ट के अंदर में 3 सेक्शन है. एक सेक्शन 215 बोलता है कि you cannot do business commercial activity. Then you have section 11(4)(a) which says that you can do incidental business activity. Section 11(4) which says that you can hold businesses as a part of trust property. तो मान लीजिए, then at the beginning I said that there are 7 type of charitable organizations. 7 type of charitable organizations. Only the last category charitable organization cannot do business, incidental business activity beyond 20%. 20% से ज्यादा वो नहीं कर सकता, बाकी के लिए कोई लिमिट नहीं है. तो 11(4)(a) is unlimitedly available to other organizations. Any other category organizations cannot do. So when we are talking of business under section 215, we are talking only of the 7th category. We are not talking about other organizations. When it comes to section 11(4)(a), then we are talking about everybody, of all the charitable institutions. To make things simpler, let us first discuss two section 11(4)(a) and 4 which are there in the act since its inception. Act कहता है कि आप बिजनेस एक्टिविटी कर सकते हैं. अगर आप बिजनेस एक्टिविटी करते हैं सेक्शन 11(4)(a) में, टैक्स ऑडिट करेंगे नहीं करेंगे? 5 करोड़ का टर्नओवर है. Now, this is a very debatable issue. Technically, there is nothing in the law which suggests, because section 14(5) heads of income do not apply. This income, the separate books of account has to be maintained under commercial principles. Section 32, all these sections do not apply. These have been held. So incidental business, separate books to be maintained commercially has been held by various high courts. They have not given any financial limits कि इतना तक होने से ये करेगा इतना सा. So technically tax audits do not apply to charitable organizations even if there is any amount of turnover. But there is our Institute of Chartered Accountants of India Taxation Committee has taken a view that there are 2 types of businesses a charitable organization can do. One, business held as a property of trust. एक सिनेमा हॉल रामकृष्ण मिशन को किसी ने दान में दे दिया. बिजनेस हेल्ड एज ए प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ ट्रस्ट, इट इज नॉट एन इंसिडेंटल बिजनेस. बेनिफिशियरी हैंडीक्राफ्ट बनाता है, उसको हम लोग एक्सपोर्ट करता है, दैट इज बिजनेस इंसिडेंटल टू द एक्टिविटी ऑफ ट्रस्ट. तो बिजनेस इंसिडेंटल टू द एक्टिविटी ऑफ ट्रस्ट 11(4)(a) टैक्स ऑडिट नॉट रिक्वायर्ड. बट आवर इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ द इज ऑफ द व्यू दैट बिजनेस हेल्ड एज प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ ट्रस्ट, all provisions of section 32, 44 will apply, including tax audit. It should be separately computed. Only the net amount should come and be added to the income net up. So that is how it should be treated. So incidental business 11(4)(a). Now coming to section 215. 215 is a notorious section for the last 6-7 years. When in 2008 it said that 7th category NGOs cannot have any business activity. Section 11(4) और 4A सबके लिए है. 215 का बिजनेस रिलेटेड प्रोविजन सिर्फ 7th कैटेगरी एनजीओ के लिए है, एनी अदर पब्लिक जनरल पब्लिक यूटिलिटी। 215 बोलता है कि इस साल से कि अगर आप कोई इंसिडेंटल बिजनेस अगर करें, एक बिजनेस शुड बी रिलेटेड टू योर एक्टिविटी। दैट मीन्स यू आर इवन इफ यू आर होल्डिंग सम 11(4)(a) मेरे हिसाब से आप नहीं कर सकते, उन ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को चेंज करना पड़ेगा। फर्स्ट 7 ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कैन होल्ड बिजनेस एज अ प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ ट्रस्ट, बिकॉज़ दे से दैट यू कैन नॉट हैव एनी बिजनेस which is not related to your activity. So holding business as property of trust will not be possible for 7th category NGO. So the business should be related to your activity. You have to prove. This is to nullify Supreme Court cases. Supreme Court ने कह दिया था 30 ट्रस्ट में, गुजरात मैरीटाइम में, कि if the income is used for charitable purposes, then the business is related. So now to nullify those rulings, the Act says, one, the business should be related to the activity. Two, it should not be more than 20% of total receipt. Total receipt has not been defined. So a conservative definition of total receipt would be the total income when you begin at section 11(1). An aggressive interpretation of total receipt would be the entire receipt as per your receipt and payment account. But we don't have a conclusive definition. We will say that you go by the conservative interpretation. The income under section 11(1), the total income under section 11(1) should be the total receipt. You can do business activity to the extent of 20%. Business related issues, if you have any issues, just tell me. Business activity of NGOs. जी।
Sir, the hospital registered under section 11 as outpatient and inpatient.
हाँ।
So, a pharmacy operating in the basement and the patient outpatients are purchasing medicine. So, the outpatient pharmacy is a business activity or related?
No. Throughout the country in last 3-4 years, the income tax department is targeting this pharmacy, because pharmacy the income percentage is 100%, because the medicines, even if they sell it at discount, because I handled few of the cases. So in one case the income from pharmacy, the turnover from pharmacy was 15 crore, the income was 8 crore, it was 55%. So then they say that there is a dominant business. So you may Google, there is a case, Stephens Hospital, Delhi High Court, which has talked about this pharmacy income. So the courts have not distinguished between a pharmacy in-house or out-house. 1. 2. A medical being a first 6th category institution. First 6th category institution, it can have unlimited business activity, and as long as the entire amount is redeployed back for charitable activity, it does not create any violation under section 11(4)(a), because section 215 does not apply. As I said, the section 215 will apply to 7th category organizations. Yours is a first 6th category organization, but most of the cases the ITOs are applying 215, and that is why it is difficult to handle these kind of cases.
Sir, but the assessing officer is saying that he will only apply the outpatient income, like 2 incomes are there, inpatient pharmacy income and outpatient pharmacy income. So he is saying outpatient pharmacy income is only business income, not inpatient.
No, there are 2 cases. One, the assessing officer is not correct, because there are cases where you have peripheral business. For instance, you need a business for your primary activity. That business is generating additional income. That cannot be treated as a non-incidental business activity. There are cases. I will give you one example. In Chennai, there is a horticulture board. So they need garden for their own research. Horticulture. flower garden, orchards, but film industry uses those garden for shooting. तो garden का काम कुछ आता नहीं है, research के लिए film वाले shooting करते हैं. The income tax department said that the shooting business is just like your case. So High Court said that those assets, businesses which are integrally required for advancement of primary objective, any additional income, resource generation from such income will not create a business activity. So maybe you can share your detail. Let us not go into a bilateral discussion. But one, it cannot be detailed that outpatient is a different activity. One, there are cases. Two, even if it is detailed, then there is no violation of 11(4)(a) because 215 does not apply as long as the income is used into the system. It is in compliance of section 11. In either case, there is no case for addition. So any issue related to, yes sir.